We're going to talk to a fantastically inspiring guy, Randy Sloan, coming up halfway through the show here on Cool Jazz Weekly. Everything fresh in the world of cool and contemporary jazz with just a dash of the retro. Randy is breaking into the smooth jazz world as we speak, where we've been playing a song of his called It's a Vibe, and it definitely is a vibe. We're enjoying it here on Cool Jazz Weekly and Kutztown Radio and our other radio affiliates as well. Randy, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. Absolute pleasure. Okay, Randy, let's start first of all telling us a little bit about your background, your musical background, or just your background in general.
Oh, well, originally I'm from the West Coast up in rainy Pacific Northwest. I grew up there, just south of Seattle, Washington. And I think my backstory musically is like so many other musicians. I got bitten by the bug very early. I think the earliest exposure was maybe to rock and roll was to the Beatles for certain, but also I was fortunate because I grew up in a household where my dad had a lot of old 78s and 33 records, and he loved, classic jazz. I listened to a lot of big band stuff, a lot of Louis Armstrong was a favorite of his, and I may not have understood it at the time, but I knew enough to know, hey, this is good music. So I had both. I had the rock and roll coming in one ear and then the jazz and the big band swing stuff in the other ear. So that was kind of nice. But my love affair with guitar absolutely started the first time I heard Jimi Hendrix. And that was it. I was hooked, hook, line, and sinker. I was all in. And that was probably when I was in, junior high. And I heard that and I just said, boy, I got to understand this. And so from then on, it's just been a love affair with the guitar. And it just kind of progressed from there, but that was the origin of it all. And here we are all these many years later.
So, Randy, you're a guitar musician. Would you say, have you always considered yourself a jazz guitar musician, or have you just always been interested in the guitar in general, or where does jazz fit into this?
Great question. So that's been an evolution, and it was a very decided one, or very methodical decision on my part, because for many years I played through my 20s and 30s and even my 40s. I was playing on the West Coast in top 40 rock and roll bands, corporate bands, where we would do a lot of corporate functions. That circuit, and it was more whatever was hot on the radio at the time, but certainly not jazz. We were doing top 40 and rock and roll, and it was a great background. But what I found, what started the transition for me, all the while I've always listened to smooth jazz. I've loved it, and my brother also plays saxophone, so he was a big smooth jazz aficionado. So while I'm in the bedroom working on my rock and roll riffs, he's over in the corner playing his sax to Kenny G and Grover Washington Jr. and all these Ronnie Laws and all these guys. And I'm going, man, that sounds excellent. So again, I had that double exposure, which was really beneficial as it's turned out. But when I got into my late 40s, I was playing in a really good band, top 40 group on the West Coast, and we were doing quite well. But it just dawned on me, we were playing this packed club one night, and I looked out, your typical bar, and I looked out and I saw all these young people dancing. And I kind of nudged my singer in the middle of the song. I go, look out there, what do you see? And he laughed, he goes, I don't know, a great floor. And I go, no, I see my 20-year-old daughter out there. I see that age group. And so as much as I love that music, it just didn't fit anymore. Well, that didn't mean I didn't want to keep performing, but that I didn't want to be that guy that, and bless them, they can continue to do that. There's lots of people out there that are playing rock and roll well into their 60s and 70s, and I see them in pubs everywhere, right? That just didn't fit me personally, but I love playing guitar. So I thought, okay, how do I reinvent myself? And I'm big on that whole topic. How do you reinvent yourself to stay relevant, to stay energized, in every aspect of your life? Well, certainly in music, and still be able to do what you love to do. There was when the transition happened. I decided, you know what? Smooth jazz, there's some amazing smooth jazz artists out there that are well into their 60s, and they're doing wonderfully. and nobody bats an eye. And so I thought, okay, my wife and I made the move to Dallas, Texas, a couple of years, almost 3 years ago now. And I said, now I'm going to do the reinvention. So I went back to the drawing board, and I already knew a lot of smooth jazz style music. I coming from the rock and roll background, as you know, smooth jazz has a lot of blues and R&B in it. So it wasn't a big stretch. It wasn't like I was trying to become a bebop guitarist. There's so many inflections in smooth jazz guitar that translates directly back to the blues and to rock that transition was easier for me. And that's when it began. I started revamping my set list, and now I'm out doing this full time. And it's just me with my guitar, and I'm having a great time. I'm loving it. And now I'm starting to write and record music in that style.
So that's a great story. That's a fantastic story on how the whole evolution of things. I absolutely love that. So It's a Vibe. Is that one of your first really big, marketed tunes getting out there to the broadcast world?
It is the first one.
The first one. Okay.
It is the first one in any genre.
Okay.
All right. Again, the ability that the internet has given us, to be able to do this is just, for me, it's mind blowing going through this process for the first time.
Yeah.
I had done recordings and stuff way back in the day, but those are back in the old days when you were trying to go get a record contract. And I did that. I tried to go down to Los Angeles way back in the early 80s. And, it didn't work out, but there was none of these other amazing options out there. So this has just been a very organic journey for me. And again, every day is a new adventure. I love it. I started out, like I said, when we moved to the Dallas area, for me, it was a big impetus was because I wanted to come to an area rich in music, especially guitar music. And I played now down in Austin a handful of times. And of course, Austin's got an amazing blues and rock tradition. So for me, that kind of hollowed ground. The next logical step after I got going and playing and become very well established on the circuit around here is, okay, now I'm itching to create this style of music on my own. And I was very fortunate to bump into an amazing saxophone player who has his own recording studio here in town. And he loved my music and he said, hey, we should work together. So he invited me in to kind of collaborate. I wrote It's a Vibe. And then he was gracious enough to lay down some saxophone on that. His name's Nair De Leon. And Nair did the sax, and he also did the recording and the mix and the mastering of that song for me. So again, it's just this natural sort of progression, this evolution. I joke, I almost feel a little bit like, I pinch myself and I feel a little bit like Forrest Gump. I kind of find myself in these situations that it's like, is this really happening?
It's kind of like one of those pinch me type moments.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm working my butt off to do it, and I'm doing all the groundwork, and I'm the guy doing, all of the reach outs and stuff. And I do it constantly, both to get gigs as well as now to promote the single. But the way it's evolving it's just more than I expected. Let's put it that way.
So the response to It's a Vibe has been quite good?
Quite good. Yeah, it really has. I've kind of lost track now of the number of online radio stations that have picked it up all around the world. And I can track, of course, the demographics and the location through Spotify. And interestingly enough, and this is a learning experience for me, by far and away my biggest country that seems to really love smooth jazz still, or now, is Brazil and Indonesia. They're the top two, followed by the U.S. But it's Brazil and Indonesia far and away, like 2-1, the number of listeners that have
streamed. That's very interesting. I've heard Brazil, but I haven't heard Indonesia that much. But that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, who knew, right? And so I've been doing some marketing on my end as far as like through Instagram ads and stuff. And so I've done a couple of targeted Instagram reach outs to Brazil, and sure enough, they sign up and they follow, and it's pretty cool.
So I have to ask you, we talked a little bit about this off the air, Randy, and now let our listeners, learn a little bit as well. How the whole process of being an independent musician in this day and age has changed a lot. 20, 30 years ago, before the internet was a big thing, it was, kind of more the old-fashioned marketing, marketers contacting radio stations, hey, play this guy's music. Now the internet has kind of leveled the playing field. Everybody's kind of, out there and able, which is great. But you also becomes almost like you're a needle in a haystack just because there's so much competition out there. So how do you stand out? How do you make yourself separate from everybody else? What do you do?
Great question. I think, well, I'm fortunate that I come from a marketing background, 30 years in graphic design and marketing and ad agency work. So I know a little bit about branding. And I know a little bit about the whole, you have to look at the whole package. And I think the most successful musicians in any genre, but, certainly in smooth jazz, is they're very careful to look at all aspects of their product, not just the live shows, not just, I wish it was just playing music, but it's not. I do joke, and I actually mean this. There are some phenomenal guitar players in Dallas that I play way more than they do live. And are they better jazz guitar players than me? Absolutely they are. I'm not afraid to say that. Maybe not smooth jazz, but I'm sure they're out there too. But true jazz guitar players, that's why I never call myself a bebop or a classic jazz guy, because I would be embarrassed. But what I am good at is looking at the whole picture. So it's marketing, it's how you present yourself. It's everything down to the quality of the artwork on the single, to, for better, for worse, the quality of what you post online, on Instagram, on Facebook, and videos that you put out there, all the way down to these glasses. These have kind of become a little bit of a trademark for me. People, oh yeah, you're the guy with the cool hipster glasses. And I just figure, hey, have fun with it, right? So it's really, I think a lot of it's about attention to detail and consistency. I'm constantly reaching out. People ask me, they joke, other musicians go, how come you're getting all the gigs? I go, well, I never stop. Truly. If I'm not playing, I'm sitting here at my computer reaching out to folks, just touching base. I'm not spamming anybody, but hey, and it's surprising. You may not hear from a really cool hotel for months. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten those gigs. Right. Or in my case, a country club I reached out to for over a year. Now I end up playing there every third Thursday of the month, and it's a great show.
So you just have to be persistent sometimes.
You really do.
Yeah.
It's attention to detail and being persistent and really being careful with what you're presenting as your brand.
So now that It's a Vibe has been a success, marketing your first song out to broadcast outlets, what's in the coming plans? I mean, obviously you're a performer, you're going to be going to different places, but are you working on more material for broadcast?
Yeah, I'm in the process now of working up a follow-up song.
Okay.
And that's actually part of the equation I haven't figured out yet, is because I'm getting conflicting information. What is the best frequency of release, especially through Spotify? And I've read everything from 4 to 6 weeks, which to me is just mind-boggling, up to, it can just take longer. And I think maybe that has to do with the style of music, I think if you're doing a lot of beats and maybe EDM and house and trance music and using a lot of samples, maybe it comes together faster. But this style of music and the way I'm approaching it is, first I have to write the song, then I have to find, the kind of musicians that I want to work with. And then we have to go to the studio and record it and have it, that whole thing, which I've learned so much in the last go round. So, but that definitely is in the works. And that's what I'm working on now, is I'm in the writing process for a new song, which will be more of a ballad. This one will be a ballad. And then hopefully I'll just approach it the same way as I've been doing this one. The nice thing is now I have a list of contacts, right? I'm not starting from square one.
Not starting from scratch. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So this is your opportunity, Randy, to let us know you've billed yourself as a good marketer, which you obviously are, because you're doing this full time. Yeah. Where can we learn more about Randy Sloan? Your website or your Instagram. Where are you most active? Tell us all about that.
Definitely, I would say most active is probably Instagram at Randy Sloan Guitar. And also, I religiously, for people that are in the area, the Dallas, Fort Worth, really Houston. I'm trying to get into San Antonio now. I play in Austin, Texas. The website is always up to date with shows, and that's randysloan.com. And And of course, I've got to put the word out there now. My real focus is Spotify.
Yeah.
I want to. It's been amazing. I've just in 3 weeks, and I don't have anything to compare this to as far as metrics go. But to me, it seems like it's really doing well because I've already been put on 656 playlists, and I've got close to 5,000 streams already. So it seems like it's working. So of course you can always find me there too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Randy, you're definitely an inspiration for both not only just casual listeners and consumers of the genre, but into musicians in general as well. So to fellow artists.
Yes, I hope to be, because I'm on the back nine of life, and I'm living my best life right now. I'm finally doing what I've always loved doing now full time, and and I'm in a genre and a style. As long as I take care of myself physically,
right,
and continue to grow and listen to the music and connect with people. I mean, I plan on doing this till the wheels fall off, which is, I'm sure, what a lot of the artists that you interview would say the same thing.
They would, they absolutely do. Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about this style of music, is that it's not youth driven.
Mm-hmm.
It is not youth driven. It is just, if you love that style of music, you love it. I don't think it's dependent on age.
Yeah, it's really not it's really not one demographic or the other. I see young people, old people.
Yes,
everybody loves it. Everybody.
That's the other thing too. Spotify's shown me so far is that my demographics, I thought it would skew older, 40s and up, and it does a little bit. No, 25 to 37 is by far, surprising. So that's cool. That's actually speaks well for the genre moving forward.
I work at a college, and obviously, you're going to have the kids that like the alternative rock and stuff like that. But I always have a fair chunk of, I'd say, 20% of college kids that love this kind of music. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Because I'm with you. I went through the first wave of smooth jazz when it was huge, back in the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
And I can remember quite well, we had a station in Seattle called The Wave.
Yeah.
Huge. I listened to it all the time. And then one day I went to turn it on my car and it was gone. It was country.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh man, it really was disheartening. So it's nice to see people like you out there championing it, promoting it, and it's great to hear that there's young people actually really interested in it again.
These jazz festivals, like we're here in Berks County, Pennsylvania. We're near the Berks Jazz Fest. You probably heard that.
Yes.
And all the concerts always sell out. I mean, so that the audience is there. I think it's just the whole how people consume it has changed. I mean, radio is becoming more of a mass appeal type thing where you have to search out these other genres like alternative and smooth jazz through venues like satellite and internet, and that's fine. That's not a bad thing. It's just how the playing field has changed a little bit.
Yeah. Well, people are so savvy with this stuff now, is that it's not hard for people to do that.
Right.
It's not mysterious. Everyone knows pretty much how to stream, how to find those, bookmark that stuff. So once you found it, you found your homes. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, it's great.
So one of my favorite final questions that I always ask, and you probably heard when I asked other artists this, any inspiring words you would like to share to, and you can direct this at anybody, Randy, whether it's just fellow musicians, fellow humans in general, what inspiring words of wisdom that you want to get out there?
Absolutely. I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, is this area of reinvention. I really, really believe in that, because when I was in my teens, I had a very, very close family friend, and I was talking to her, and I was saying, gosh, I don't know, should I give up music? I got to get a regular job. I'm getting, into my 20s. And she said, you can do that, but if you've truly been bit by the musical bug, it never goes away. She wasn't a musician. She's just a wise lady. Yeah. And she's absolutely right. I mean, I've never been able to let it go. And I think that as you start to get up in your, later years, I think there's that inclination for a lot of people to say, oh, it's passed me by, or I don't think I can do this anymore. Well, if you still got the bug and the desire, there are ways to reinvent yourself, take care of yourself. I look to role models. I'm big on that. And one of them is Sting, the musician Sting. I love his music. He's a genius in my eyes. But also, here's an amazing guy who was a huge artist in the 80s. the pop world, like at the top.
Yeah.
And yet now look at him still. He's still beyond relevant. He's reinvented himself. Those are the guys that I look to and I go, okay, in my small way, I can replicate that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, if you really still love it, keep doing it. Don't give up. Don't think it's passed you by, because it definitely has not.
Smooth jazz, non-stop.
Cool Jazz Weekly.